Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you have not subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do subscribe it. The link is already available at the top left of the screen. In today's video, we are going to talk about how to create an app service using Microsoft Azure. It's one of the serverless architecture. That's one we are going to discuss in this video. The serverless architecture doesn't mean that we don't have any servers. Actually, there are still servers that are running and they actually run our code, but they are abstracted from the developers. So it means as a developers or as an end user, we are not really worried about where that code is running, how that code is running, or the server is running, or the infrastructure is running. The cloud service provider automatically provisions, scales, and manages the infrastructure for running applications. It also enables the software engineers to concentrate more on development and code rather than managing the infrastructure. And one of the most important things for serverless architecture is that it provides the scalability as per the needs and demand. So for example, if we are running a web application and we need more computing power for some kind of let's say a sale to be going around within the next 10 days, so we can just provision that scalability, which would automatically scale up and can automatically scale down once the sales event is done. The serverless architecture has different application patterns. In Microsoft Azure, there are primarily 5 application patterns for serverless architecture. The first one is serverless functions. It primarily provides kind of an environment where we can write a very small amount of a code that is run on some kind of an event or some kind of a trigger. The beauty of this serverless functions is that you pay only for the time when they are run. So it is a cost-effective solution. And we can run the serverless functions with the help of C# or JavaScript code. The second is serverless application environments, which give us a pre-configured environment. For example, if we want to run a .NET Core application or a .NET Framework application, or we want to run it as a Node.js environment, or in fact, we want to run it on a Windows or a Linux environment. The third is the serverless API. This is a fully managed service for the developers to write backend APIs for single page applications or like the front-end applications. So developers can fully write, manage, publish the APIs. They can even secure their APIs with different methodologies. Serverless Kubernetes is the another one that's a part of the application pattern. It's a fully managed Kubernetes cluster service where developers can run their own containers, and that can be scaled up or scaled down as per the needs. So the developers can bring in their own containers and publish their containers to this Kubernetes cluster service, and it is a fully managed service by Azure to provide that capability. And the last one is serverless workflows, or also called as logic apps. It's a fully managed service for developing workflow orchestrations with drag and drop facilities. So it means we don't have to actually know the full code to integrate different services. Rather, the Azure workflow orchestration provides you a drag and drop capability to mix and match and integrate different environments. Okay, so now it's the time to actually see how we can use the serverless architecture in Azure and how we can use it to create one of the application patterns that is creating a web service for running like a .NET Core or any Node.js application. So let's move on to Azure first. So we normally go in for a portal.azure.com. We need to provide our credentials. So once we sign in, this would lead us to the home page or the basic page where we can start creating services. The first of the things what we can do over here is we can just create a resource and then start creating any kind of a resource which we want. Because we want to create a serverless architecture and a web service plan, so we'll say create resource, and then we'll start searching a web app. So when we search for a web app, it would give us a kind of a template where we can create a web app and where we can select multiple options. So let's start creating that. So when we create that, the first of the basic things is it's primarily divided into 4 different tabs, like where we need to supply that information. So there is a subscription which would automatically be selected. Right now I'm into a free trial. Resource group. Resource group is technically some kind of a container, like a folder where we can put all the resources. Let's say you're working on a project, so all the resources for that project you can put it into one container. So because right now I don't have any resource group, so we can create a resource group. Let's say RD resource group. Okay, so we put that into then we have to give the instance details. It has to be a unique name, and because it is going to be your name dot, and if you see Azure websites.net. Of course, this is the kind of the DNS what they set up, but once you set up the app service and the app service plan, then you can even change the DNS, like point it to a different domain name, your custom domain name, but that's like once your application is being set up. So let's say I just say RD test app. So if you see, it just gives me a tick mark symbol, which means that the name is perfectly fine. It is not duplicated somewhere or it's not used anywhere. And you have a publish parameter, which is like a code or a Docker container. So if you remember, like in the serverless architecture application patterns, we studied about the Docker containers or the Kubernetes services. So if we have a Kubernetes or a container image, we can use the Docker container. But because we have a code, we want to create a .NET Core application. So we can just select, like, if you see over here, we have a .NET Core based upon 3.1, 2.1. You have a ASP.NET version 4.7, 3.5. You have a Java 8. You have a Node versions, PHP, Python, or if you want to run some kind of a Ruby application. So right now I'm interested in running a .NET Core 3.1. And by default it automatically selects the operating system also based upon what kind of a stack you are going to run, or you can even select the stack for you. And then we have to specify the region. So I'm going to select the West US, and this one is region is selected. And then for every application we need to select an app service plan. So technically the web app is not going to be costing anything, but it has to be associated to an app service plan. So app service plan is some kind of like a pre-configured plan with some kind of resources being configured for you in terms of hardware, in terms of like processor, memory, whatever. And these are primarily being supplied in the form of an SKU and size, and we have the capability to change that. So if we change it, so let's say we have like a production tiers, we have an isolated tiers, or we have a dev test tiers. So if you go into the dev test tiers, you can see you have a F1, which is like a free category, but it has certain limitations of like 60 minutes of day compute we can use. You have a D1, which is a shared infrastructure, 1 GB of memory, 240 minutes day per of compute, and the approximation cost per month would be 12.15 Canadian dollars, and so on. So for the demonstration purposes, I'm just going to pick up this F1 and I say apply. So it's a free tier I use, and the Windows West plan by default it tries to give a name to that, and I can just create another app service plan name. So let's say app service, and I click on OK. Yep. And so this particular tab looks all good to go. So we have to remember that whenever we select any web app, we have to associate it with the app service plan. So unless and until you associate it with the app service plan, you can't technically like run that particular stuff. And it's very like the basic requirement for any kind of an app service plan to run that. So we are into the free F1 shared infrastructure, this one. And then we are going to go on to the next one, which is like monitoring. So it says you want to enable application insights, which is technically providing more information about your application, kind of a logs or anything. So no, right now I'm not interested in that. You want to have some tags information. The tags are primarily a key and a value pair, which can be used for differentiating and filtering out in terms of costing or billing or any other thing. So if you need for any kind of a tagging, like you want to tag it for a finance department, or you want this one to be tagged with, let's say, a production department, so you can create tags over here. And then we move on to the review and create. Here it just tries to validate whatever we have selected, and then it would give us an option whether everything looks fine, so we can go and technically create this web app. So it takes a time to validate, and yep, so it has validated, all looks good. So now it gives us a create button to actually create this web app with the chosen details and the app service plan. So I'll click on the create. So this web app and the app service plan is going to take some time. So we'll use the magic of the video to fast forward it, and we'll commit once it is actually ready. So we can see our app service has been properly deployed. It is succeeded, and now we can go to that resource. So let's say we go to that particular resource. So this is the RD test app, which was exactly the app service plan which we created. And so you can see it has given us a URL, it has a resource group, it is on some kind of a location, the subscription associated towards that, and it has some kind of an FTP host name, or like for the secured FTP to actually log in into that and see the files. But we can also like use Visual Studio's Git or Azure DevOps functionality to actually deploy it to this particular app service. So now if we just want to see whether our app service is like actually working, so we can just click on this URL and it opens up a new window. And in case everything looks fine, yes, so we can see our home page. This is the app service, the developers can use it. It has like some kind of a template page they have given to you. So we are able to successfully create and deploy the app service plan for us. And this one has other features like which is not possible in this video to actually go into details, because it is too much of a complex and much more time required to actually get into those details. But we can have like the deployment slots, which is like changing the slots from a UAT to test or test to UAT. We have an authentication or authorization. We have application insights, identity, backup, or we can have a custom domains, which I was talking about, like, because right now it is just going to give you HTTPS RD test app, and it's like on Azure websites.net. But if you want to associate it to a custom domain, we can do that with the help of a custom domain. We can have the SSL settings, networking. We can have a scaling up or a scaling down planned for some kind of a sale event or some kind of a event where we think that the user load is going to increase. So by this way, we are able to create a platform as a service, like which helps you to abstract different things from the end developers. We don't have to worry about the managing the infrastructure or the underlying infrastructure that's needed for running this application. I hope you all like this video, and probably I'll be coming up with more videos in the coming times. Do subscribe to my YouTube channel. I want to remind you all, and thanks for watching my video. Thanks again, guys. Have a great day.